Alien girl takes human to a hidden lake, but human's reflection shows her standing beside him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The wind pressed softly against Evan Carter's suit as he pushed through the glowing underbrush. The faint blue shimmer of alien leaves brushing against his arms like cool fingertips. His visor flickered in and out, fighting a strange interference he couldn't track, and for a moment he wondered if he'd wandered farther from camp than he realized. His boots sank lightly into the mossy ground, the texture giving beneath each step like memory foam warmed by sunlight. The air tasted faintly metallic, almost like the smell of rain drifting through old copper pipes. He checked his wrist gauge again, battery at 32%, internal temperature steady, no signs of toxic spores. Good enough, he told himself. Just find a signal, get back before nightfall. Simple. Then the forest quieted. Not the soft quiet of nature, but the deliberate hush of something watching. Evan froze, breath shallow against the inside of his visor. Threads of mist curled upward from the soil, drifting around him like slow-moving smoke. A faint ripple of blue light pulsed somewhere beyond the trees, almost like a heartbeat beneath the earth. He took a careful step forward, and a soft clicking sound echoed behind him. He turned. She stood on a smooth rock formation shaped like polished glass, her silhouette outlined by the faint glow rising off her skin. Ares. At least, that's the name he would learn much later. Right now, she was simply the stranger with shimmering blue-silver skin and violet eyes that seemed to glow from within, like gemstones lit by a hidden lamp. She didn't move, didn't threaten, didn't speak. She only watched him, her gaze steady and calm, as if weighing something he couldn't see. Evan raised his hands instinctively, not in surrender, but in a quiet attempt to show he meant no harm. His breath fogged lightly inside the visor, the faint hum of his suit the only sound between them. I'm just trying to get back to my camp, he murmured, voice steady though his pulse wasn't. She tilted her head slightly, the motion smooth, graceful, curious. For a long moment, neither of them said a word. The forest held its breath with them. A bead of moisture slid down the side of his helmet, catching a thread of her reflected light as it fell. She finally spoke, her voice soft and clear, carrying the calm of deep water. You're far from your camp, human. The way she said it didn't sound accusing, only factual, almost gentle. Evan swallowed, unsure whether to step closer or stay perfectly still. Before he could decide, she turned her gaze toward the faint blue glow between the trees and then back at him. An invitation, or a warning, he couldn't tell. But when she stepped down from the glassy stone and the mist drifted open around her like a curtain, Evan found himself following without a word. The mist curled around Evan's boots as he followed Ares through the glowing forest, each step softened by the moss that gave slightly under his weight. Her movements were almost silent, her bare feet gliding over the ground as if the earth recognized her and shifted to meet her. The faint bioluminescence from her skin cast shifting patterns on the leaves, guiding him like a moving constellation. His suit sensors flickered occasionally, unable to read the energy drifting in thin ribbons through the air. Evan tapped the side of his wrist gauge, but the screen buzzed with static. It is not broken, Ares said without looking back. Her voice sounded calm, steady, almost like she was speaking to the forest rather than him. This place confuses your machines. He let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. That makes two of us, he muttered. She glanced back, and for the first time he caught something like amusement in her eyes. It vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by quiet focus as she pushed past a curtain of shimmering vines. Evan hesitated before following, feeling the faint tingle of static against his suit as he brushed through the vines. On the other side, the world felt different. The air warmer, the ground firmer, the light dimmer. A soft hum vibrated in the soil, as if something deep below the surface was slowly breathing. Ares slowed her pace, letting him walk beside her. Her scent drifted faintly toward him, something like cool rain mixed with crushed mint leaves. You should not have wandered this far alone, she said. Not scolding. Just stating a fact with the weight of experience behind it. Evan wiped a line of moisture from the inside of his visor with his thumb. I did not have much of a choice. Equipment malfunction pushed me off course. She nodded once, her silver blue hair catching the reflected glow of the plants as it swayed. Your sky machines do not understand this land. It shifts. It hides. It tests you. They stepped out into a clearing, the canopy opening above them like a cracked dome. Far beyond the treetops, two moons sat close together, one pale gold, one deep violet, their light spilling down in overlapping waves. Evan felt a knot loosen in his chest at the sight. Something so impossibly still had a way of calming him. Ares stopped at the edge of a narrow path carved into smooth stone. The lake is ahead, she said softly. Evan studied her profile for a moment. The way her features softened under the moonlight, the subtle glow along her jawline. She looked serene, but also distant, as if part of her lived somewhere he could not see. Why show me? He asked quietly. Ares did not answer right away. Her finger brushed a nearby leaf, and the entire plant pulsed with a gentle blue light, as if responding to her touch. Because you looked lost, she said finally. And this place does not welcome the lost unless someone guides them. Evan felt the weight of her words settle over him. Not heavy, but grounding, like a hand placed gently between his shoulder blades. They moved on together, the clearing giving way to a narrow passage framed by arching roots. A thin mist drifted from the opening ahead, colder than the air around them. The sound of water echoed faintly, each note soft and pure like a distant chime. Evan slowed, realizing they were close, and Ares glanced at him with a quiet, unreadable expression. Do not be afraid of what you see, she said. The lake reflects more than the surface. He frowned, unsure what she meant, but followed as she stepped through. The last curve of stone, the light shifting into a cool, glimmering silver as the hidden lake opened before them. The hidden lake stretched out before Evan like a sheet of rippled glass, its surface glowing with a soft silver light that seemed to come from within rather than from the moons overhead. The water did not move with the breeze. It did not bend around the stones near its edge. It simply existed in perfect stillness, so calm it made him hesitate to breathe too deeply. Ares stepped closer, her reflection appearing on the surface long before her feet reached the shore. The mirrored version of her stood perfectly upright, hair drifting as if caught in a current that did not exist. Evan watched, unsure if the reflection belonged to her or to the lake itself. He reached up to adjust his visor, but Ares lifted a hand in quiet warning. Do not touch your helmet, she murmured. Let the air settle around you. This place listens. Evan lowered his hand slowly, trying to understand the weight in her voice. The scent of the water reached him now, something clean, almost metallic, like the air after a lightning storm. His boots crunched lightly on the fine crystal sand as he moved beside her. The sand gave a soft glow under each step, lighting their path in muted pulses. You come here often? Evan asked in a quiet tone, not wanting to disturb the silence around them. Ares let out a slow breath. I used to, when I needed to remember myself. Her eyes softened as she looked across the water, and for a moment Evan could see the shadows of memories in them. Not sadness exactly, but something quieter, deeper, like the weight of choices she did not speak about. The lake connects to emotion, she added. It reflects truth, not surface. Evan felt a subtle shiver trace along his spine. Truth about what? Ares did not answer right away. She stepped forward until she stood at the very edge, her toes almost touching the still water. Her reflection appeared again, but this time it shifted slightly, standing closer to Evan than she physically was. Evan blinked, assuming it was a trick of the light, but the reflection did not correct itself. Ares remained where she was, yet her mirrored form leaned slightly toward him, as if drawn by. A feeling she had not admitted aloud. She noticed it too. Her eyes widened just enough for him to catch it. The lake responded to something she did not expect. Evan took a slow breath. The air felt heavier here, more deliberate. Even his heartbeat seemed quieter, as if muffled by the lake's presence. Ares, he said softly, is this normal? She stared at the reflection for a long moment before answering. The lake has never shown me this before. Her voice held no fear, only confusion layered with something unspoken. She finally looked at him, the moonlight catching in her violet eyes. It shows what the heart leans toward. Evan's chest tightened, not with alarm, but with an unexpected warmth. He searched her expression for any sign of discomfort, but she seemed more curious than anything else, as if she was seeing herself in a way she never had. A gentle ripple passed across the lake, the first movement he had seen since they arrived. The reflection shifted again, standing unmistakably at his side, close enough that the mirrored version of Ares almost brushed his arm. Evan's breath caught. Ares looked down at the water, her voice barely above a whisper. "The lake thinks I am standing beside you." Evan swallowed, the quiet around them deepening until even the forest seemed to listen. "Are you?" he asked. Ares hesitated, her gaze lowering, the faintest glow rising along her skin like a tide of light. When she finally met his eyes again, her expression held the smallest, almost fragile hint of truth. "Not yet," she said, "but something here believes I will be." The water's surface held the reflection steady, as if the lake itself refused to let the moment shift. Evan watched the mirrored version of Ares standing beside him, closer than she truly was, her reflection angled slightly toward him with a quiet familiarity that made his breath tighten. Ares stepped back from the edge, her real footsteps barely disturbing the glowing sand. Her eyes stayed fixed on the reflection as if trying to understand a language only the lake spoke. "It should not show something that has not happened," she murmured, more to herself than to him. Evan rubbed his thumb along the side of his wrist gauge out of habit, even though the device kept flickering into static. "Maybe it is predicting something." Ares shook her head gently. "The lake does not predict. It listens. It mirrors what is felt, not what is wanted." Evan let those words settle. Felt, not wanted. He looked again at the reflection. Ares's mirrored form lingered at his side like an unspoken truth, quiet and patient. A soft breeze crossed the water at last, carrying the faint scent of cool stone and damp air. The lake shimmered, then returned to perfect stillness. Ares drew a slow breath, and something in her posture eased, as if she had decided not to fight the strangeness of the moment. She turned away from the water and walked toward a smooth stone ridge that overlooked the lake. Evan followed, the sand glowing under his steps like small embers. She sat gracefully on the edge of the ridge, her legs folded beneath her, her hands resting lightly on the stone as if feeling its heartbeat. Evan hesitated before sitting beside her, leaving enough space to be respectful, though not so far that he felt like a stranger. "The lake showed you things once," Evan said quietly. Ares nodded, her gaze drifting across the still surface. "It used to show me strength when I doubted myself, purpose when I could not see a path. It showed me who I was supposed to be." She paused, the moonlight catching in her violet eyes. "But it has never shown me someone else before." Evan felt the subtle shift in her tone, not fear, not discomfort, but a quiet curiosity that reached towards something new. "Then why bring me here?" he asked. Ares lowered her eyes, tracing a fingertip along the stone ridge. The stone glowed faintly under her touch, responding to her presence. "Because the forest recognized your steps. It allowed you in." She turned slightly toward him. "Places like this do not invite those who carry harm or deception. They sense it long before the person arrives." "So you brought me because the forest approved of me?" Evan asked, with a hint of a smile. Ares did not return the smile, but her expression softened. "Because I approved of you," she said quietly. The words hung in the air, simple and honest. Evan felt his heartbeat slow, not from fear, but from the gentleness in how she said it. Ares looked down at her hands. "Your world teaches you to fear what you do not understand. Mine teaches us to move away from what confuses us. But you walked deeper into the forest even when your machines failed. Most would have run back toward what is familiar." Evan looked out at the lake again, the reflection still holding the memory of what it had shown. "Maybe I just trusted you," he said softly. Ares blinked, surprised that he had put the words out so openly. The glow along her skin rose just a little. Not bright, but warm. A single ripple crossed the lake again, small and delicate, like a quiet acknowledgement. Ares tilted her head, listening to it. "The lake reacts to truth," she said. Evan did not answer. He did not need to. The silence that followed was not empty. It felt like the beginning of something neither of them had planned, but neither stepped away from. The ridge beneath them held a faint warmth, as if the stone stored memories of sunlight long after the moons had risen. Evan let his palms rest against its surface, feeling the tiny vibrations that pulsed through it like a distant heartbeat. Ares sat quietly beside him, her gaze drifting over the lake's perfect stillness. Her expression remained calm, but something new lingered beneath it, a softness that had not been there before. The reflected versions of them still hovered on the water's surface, though slightly faded now, as if the lake only kept the truth visible for those who paid attention. Evan tried to catch the exact moment when the reflection changed, but the lake offered no clues, no ripples, no disturbances. It simply held their mirrored forms with the patience of a place that knew more than it ever revealed. Ares shifted slightly, her voice barely above the quiet hum rising from the ground. "When I was young, I came here to find clarity," she said. "Our elders believe that the lake shows the shape of our inner world, what we hide, what we fear, what we reach for without admitting it." Evan studied her profile. Her silver-blue skin caught the moonlight in soft gradients, like brushed metal warmed by touch. "And what did it show you back then?" Ares lowered her eyes, her fingers tracing small arcs over the ridge. The stone glowed under each touch, responding to her as if it recognized the patterns. "Strength," she said softly, "but not the loud kind. The kind you find in stillness. The kind you do not realize you have until the moment you need it." Evan nodded, letting the words settle. "You seem strong now," he said. Ares looked at him, her eyes deep violet, softened by something almost vulnerable. "Strength is not the same as certainty," she whispered. "And certainty does not always come from solitude." A soft breeze drifted across the ridge, carrying the faint scent of the glowing plants that lined the shore. Evan felt the cool air brush against his neck, and something quiet inside him aligned with the moment, like gears clicking into place. "What do you see now?" Evan asked gently. Ares turned her head toward the lake. The reflection showed her standing beside him again, closer than she truly sat. The mirrored Ares faced him with a kind of quiet ease, as if she belonged there. Ares drew in a slow breath, watching the image. "I see something I did not expect," she said. "Something the lake has never shown me with another." Evan waited, not pushing, letting the silence carry her thoughts. She continued in a softer tone. "I see myself near you. Calm. Certain." She hesitated, then added, "As if choosing to stand beside you is not a disruption to the path, but a part of it." Evan felt a warmth build in his chest. Not overwhelming, not sudden. Just a steady glow, like a lantern being lit after dusk. "Ares," he said carefully, "you do not owe me anything. Not understanding. Not closeness. Not trust." Her eyes lifted to meet his. "Trust is not owed," she replied. "It is given. And something in this place tells me giving it to you is not a mistake." Evan glanced at the reflection again. This time, the mirrored Ares leaned just slightly toward him, her posture relaxed and familiar. He looked back at the real Ares, and found her watching him, the moonlight drawing a subtle halo along her features. For the first time, she did not look away. The lake behind them shimmered once more, a brief flash of silver that washed over the sand like a quiet acknowledgement. Ares exhaled, almost a whisper. "Perhaps the lake is right." And for a moment, neither of them moved, held together by the gentle weight of a truth slowly finding its shape. The silence between them settled gently, like a soft layer of dust drifting through still air. Evan watched the moonlight stretch across the lake, wrapping its surface in silver. Beside him, Ares sat with her spine straight and her hands resting lightly on the glowing stone, but her eyes held a thoughtful distance, as if she was listening to something deeper than the wind. The faint hum rising from the ground grew steadier, almost melodic, as though the land itself responded to the subtle shift between them. Ares finally spoke, her voice softer than before, touched by something fragile. "There is a reason I have not returned to this place for a long time." Evan turned his head slightly, allowing her the space to speak without pressing. She continued, "The lake does not hide truth. And truth can be difficult when you are not ready to face it." She brushed her thumb across the stone ridge, and a line of pale blue light followed her movement. "The last time I came here, I saw a loss reflected back at me, the absence of someone I cared for." Evan felt a gentle ache in his chest, not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of her vulnerability. Someone important to you? Aries nodded once, a small motion. A guide. A mentor. Someone who taught me how to listen to the world, not only myself. She inhaled deeply, the light along her collarbone brightening for a moment before fading. When they were gone, the lake showed only emptiness, as if it understood the shape of what I carried. Evan let the quiet settle before he answered. Loss leaves spaces we do not expect, he said. Sometimes the world feels different afterward. Aries shifted her gaze toward him, studying his expression. Have you lost someone? He considered the question carefully. Not in the way you have, he admitted. But I know what it feels like to lose direction. To feel like something important has slipped out of reach. Aries looked back at the lake, her voice almost a whisper. Then perhaps that is why it allowed you here. A soft ripple moved across the water, subtle but unmistakable. Evan watched as the reflections on the lake shifted again, the mirrored Aries stepping closer to her mirrored counterpart of him until they stood side by side. Aries stiffened slightly, then relaxed, accepting the image rather than resisting it. It is strange, she murmured. Seeing myself. There. As if the lake believes I stand beside you in a way I have not chosen yet. Evan spoke gently. Maybe it is not about choosing. Maybe it is about acknowledging what is already present. Aries blinked, a small reaction, but telling. The glow along her arms flickered softly, responding to her breathing. Your species sees emotion as something to express, she said quietly. Mine sees it as something to guard. Evan nodded. Neither way is easy. Aries tilted her head slightly, considering his words. You do not fear the reflection, she observed. Evan looked at the water again. Why should I? Aries's fingers curled gently against the stone, her skin shimmering like moonlit metal. Because it shows connection, she said softly. And connection can be unpredictable. Evan smiled faintly, almost without realizing it. Most meaningful things are. For the first time since they arrived, Aries exhaled a breath that sounded less like restraint and more like release. The lake pulsed with a soft glow, as if acknowledging the shift in her. Evan, she said quietly. Sometimes the lake reveals what we want to ignore. Is there something you are ignoring? He asked. Aries hesitated, her gaze drifting back to the reflection where she stood so close to him. When she spoke again, her voice carried an honesty she had not shown before. Perhaps I am beginning to understand why it shows us together. The stone beneath them vibrated gently, like a quiet confirmation, and for a long moment, neither of them looked away from the lake or from what it reflected. The quiet glow along the shoreline dimmed for a moment, like the lake was holding its breath. Evan felt the shift before he understood it, a subtle tightening in the air, a faint tremor beneath the stone ridge. Aries noticed it too. Her posture straightened, and her eyes lifted toward the tree line behind them. The forest is changing, she said softly. It does not usually shift unless something has disturbed its rhythm. Evan scanned the area, though his visor continued to pulse with static. Is it dangerous? She shook her head gently. Not dangerous, just aware. The breeze carried a new scent, cooler, almost metallic, as if rain were gathering somewhere beyond the glowing canopy. Aries rose from the ridge with a fluid motion, and Evan followed. The sand glimmered beneath their feet as they stepped. Down toward the lake again. Aries held her hand over the water, her expression focused. The lake remained calm, but a faint vibration rippled outward from where she stood. Something is approaching, she murmured, her tone calm but thoughtful. Not a threat, but a presence this place recognizes. Evan stepped beside her, close enough to see the faint glow moving under the lake's surface. Is it someone from your people? He asked. Aries hesitated, her eyes tracing the slow, spiraling pattern just beneath the water. Not exactly. The lake has guardians. They do not speak, they do not appear often, and they do not interfere. But when they sense a change in someone who comes here, her voice trailed into the air, leaving the thought unfinished. Evan felt the weight of her meaning settle in. A change like what the lake showed? He asked gently. Aries looked at him, her eyes luminous in the moonlight. For a heartbeat, she seemed unsure, as though confronting a truth she had kept buried. The lake reflects inner truth. But the guardians sense intention. They test sincerity. Evan gave a small nod, understanding in a way he could not fully explain. Then what do we do? Aries turned toward the shimmering water, her expression composed but touched by a quiet determination. We wait. The hum beneath the ground grew just slightly stronger, not frightening, just present. A faint ripple crossed the lake, not disturbing the reflections but brushing lightly against their edges. Evan watched as the mirrored Ares stepped even closer to him, her image now standing in a posture of complete ease, as if she belonged at his side. Ares released a slow breath, her voice barely a whisper. The Guardians see connection as a form of strength. They only appear when they believe someone is ready for clarity. Clarity about what? Evan asked. She met his gaze with steady calm. About whether the feelings reflected are real or merely illusions created by emotion. Evan felt a quiet honesty rise in him, steady as a heartbeat. I know what I felt. Ares studied him for a long moment, her expression softening. And the lake believes you. The ripples gathered, forming a small circle of light near the center of the water, glowing brighter with each second. Ares stepped closer to Evan, not touching, but close enough that he could feel the faint warmth radiating from her skin. Do not be alarmed, she said softly. What comes next is not danger. It is understanding. The circle of light expanded slowly across the water, the reflection of Ares and Evan standing together becoming clearer, sharper, almost luminous. Ares lowered her voice, her words delicate, sincere. Whatever this place shows us now, it reveals what we are willing to face. And as the lake brightened, the air grew still again, holding the moment like a secret waiting to be spoken. The circle of light at the center of the lake widened until it touched the far edges of the shore, turning the entire surface into a shimmering mirror. The reflections sharpened, every detail more vivid than reality itself. Evan saw himself standing upright, steady, calm. Beside him, the reflected Ares stood so close their shoulders almost touched, her posture open and unguarded, her expression soft with an unmistakable familiarity. But Ares herself remained at his side with a careful distance, watching the mirrored scene with quiet astonishment. It shows us as we could be, she murmured. Or perhaps as we already are, beneath what we choose to hide. Evan took in the image, the warmth of the moment settling low in his chest. Then maybe the Guardians want you to see something you have not allowed yourself to accept, he said gently. Ares looked at him, her eyes reflecting the lake's glow. Acceptance is not easy, she whispered. Not when you are taught that closeness can cloud judgment. The hum beneath the ground rose slightly, not alarming, but steady and purposeful. The glowing circle changed shape, forming a gentle spiral, its center brightening with each breath they took. Ares stepped a little nearer to Evan, her movement instinctive rather than deliberate. They are asking a question, she said quietly. Evan felt the shift too, though he could not name it. What question? Ares studied the spiral, her voice almost a breath. Whether the connection the lake reflected is true enough to withstand clarity. Evan let the meaning settle. Clarity about what? Ares turned her head slowly toward him. About the truth I have avoided. Her fingers brushed lightly against the ridge of stone, grounding herself. My people have rules, she said softly. Boundaries around emotion. We learn that attachments can distract from purpose. That those who live long must choose carefully whom they hold close. Evan listened, understanding the weight behind each word. And you? He asked. Ares lowered her eyes. I have followed those rules for most of my life. Until now. The lake's glow strengthened, a soft pulse that matched the rhythm of Evan's heartbeat. The reflected Ares reached for the reflected Evan, their hands almost touching in the glass-like water. Evan felt a subtle warmth rise through him, not from the stone or the air, but from the understanding that the lake was showing more than a possibility. It was showing intent. Ares inhaled slowly. This place does not reveal what is fleeting, she said, only what is rooted. Evan stepped half a pace closer, not touching her, but offering presence. Ares, he said softly, what are you afraid this reflection means? She hesitated, then met his eyes. That I feel more than I am prepared to admit, she whispered. And that the lake is telling me it is real. The spiral tightened once, sending a wave of soft light across their reflections. When it faded, the mirrored version of Ares stood fully beside Evan, her hand gently resting near his, fingers relaxed, unafraid. Ares exhaled, her voice trembling with honesty. This is the truth the Guardians sensed. Evan felt the weight of the moment settle into something solid. And is it a truth you can accept? He asked quietly. Ares let her gaze drift back to the reflection. She watched the mirrored version of herself standing with him, steady and sure. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a quiet sense of revelation. I think I already have. A soft glow rose from beneath the lake, like a silent acknowledgement, sealing the truth neither of them could deny any longer. The lake's glow softened, settling into a gentle shimmer that felt less like a question and more like a quiet acceptance. The spiral of light slowly unraveled, drifting into the water until the surface returned to its perfect, glass-like calm. Ares stood a little closer than before, not touching Evan, but no longer guarding the space between them. Her eyes reflected the moonlight and the lake's fading glow, a mixture of certainty and wonder settling across her features. Evan watched the reflection, the mirrored version of Ares standing beside him with a quiet familiarity that no longer felt surprising. It felt inevitable, as if the lake had simply revealed what had been. Building between them from the moment she stepped out from the glowing trees. Ares took a slow breath, steady and deep, her voice almost carried off by the breeze when she finally spoke. The guardians have withdrawn, she said softly. They only remain when there is doubt. Evan glanced at the still water. So they believe the truth is clear. Ares nodded faintly. And now they leave it in our hands. The forest around them grew calm again, the hum beneath the ridge fading into a low, rhythmic pulse like a resting heartbeat. The glowing plants softened their light, casting gentle blue halos across the crystal sand. Evan turned to Ares, searching her expression. What happens now? She looked out over the lake for a long moment before answering, as if choosing words that carried both weight and sincerity. Connection among my people is not a small thing, she said. It is not casual. It means choosing to walk alongside another, not out of obligation, but out of intention. She turned slightly toward him. When the lake showed our reflection, it was telling me my intention was not hidden, not even from myself. Evan felt the truth settle into him with a quiet, steady warmth. And what do you want that intention to be? Ares's gaze lifted to meet his, steady and unguarded. To stand beside someone who does not turn away from truth, she said. Someone who walks forward even when lost. Someone who listens. Her voice softened. Someone like you. A gentle ripple crossed the lake, though nothing had touched the water. The reflection shimmered again, brighter for a heartbeat, before settling into a soft, steady glow. Evan stepped closer, slow and deliberate, closing the remaining space between them until he stood at her side. Not touching, but aligned. Present. Ares glanced at their reflections, and then at him, the corner of her lips lifting in the faintest, genuine curve. It seems the lake approves, she whispered. Evan let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. I am starting to trust its judgment. The air around them warmed, the wind carrying the soft scent of the glowing leaves as they brushed gently against each other. Ares tilted her head ever so slightly, studying him the way one studies something fragile yet precious. Connection changes the path, she said gently. It does not replace it. It shapes it. Evan nodded. Then I guess we shape it together. Ares's eyes softened, the violet deepening to a warm hue he had never seen before. The lake captured the moment, holding their reflections close, side by side, as if sealing the truth into its surface. The forest finally stilled, the hum fading into complete calm. Ares exhaled, her voice a soft echo against the water. Then let it begin. And in the quiet that followed, the lake shone with the faintest silver glow, as if offering its silent blessing to the path they would now walk together.